Welcome to another episode of The Wealth Defenders with Terry Cox, consumer advocate Bruce Rosenblum here with you as well. Terry has almost 20 years of wealth management experience. He knows all about money and making it work for you. And on the program, we're talking about music. In fact, Terry and I, before we started filming here, we were having a great conversation about music here. Terry, for our viewers out there, let them know, what are you listening to right now? What are your top 6 songs in rotation?
Top 6 songs? I can give you top 6 bands.
That works too, top 6 bands.
All right, so here they go. So in no particular order, it's going to be Jimmy Buffett.
Okay.
The Eagles.
Great.
Sawyer Brown. The Beach Boys. I was going to say Van Halen. I think it's Sammy Hagar these days.
Got a split right there.
Yeah, you can split it right there.
I'm an 80s metal guy, so I can really respect Van Halen. Oh, absolutely.
There you go.
Rat, Riot, that's what I like. But what's great about all these acts, Terry, as we were talking about earlier, they all have one thing in common. They've got songs about money.
About money,
and of course, and that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about actually Pink Floyd's song, Money. It's a gas.
Yeah.
You grab the cash with both hands, make a stash. It's one of those few songs that really highlights the allure and the dangers of wealth in one broad stroke here. And as we know, for retirees, managing money, it's one of the most critical aspects of making sure you got that financially secure retirement there. And in fact, Fidelity is saying the average retiree is going to need about $1.3 million to live comfortably in retirement. Terry, does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, that could be very accurate. It depends on your budget. It depends on your spending habits. It depends on your lifestyle. So those are things that we need to talk through. But probably a good rule of thumb, for sure.
Yeah. See, I read that figure and I thought, wow, that's a lot of money. So with that in mind, we got to get our money up, and we're going to take some cues from Pink Floyd here. It's time for us to talk about how we can make that cash last as long as possible. So because, Terry, you've got the experience here, I want to ask you, what are some common financial mistakes that retirees are making when transitioning from the working side of things to the retirement savings side of things, just like in the song?
Yeah. The number one problem is spending too much money as you go into retirement.
Ooh,
because people have been working for a long time. I don't know how long you've been working. I started working when I was 16. So I've been in the workforce for 40 years now.
Yes.
So you think about somebody who's been working for 40 or 50 plus years, that's really what they know. They get up every day to the alarm clock, they go to work, and all of a sudden they're retired. That's probably great for 2 or 3 days, but people start getting bored. And then they start looking, they'll pick up their statements and start looking at their balances and go, well, I've got a lot of money here. Let's go somewhere. Let's travel. Let's start spending.
Right.
And so we see that quite often, actually. Years 1 and 2, kind of a big spend down until people kind of say, whoa, I'm spending a lot of money here. I need to kind of idle back and get my budget back in line.
Ooh, and I can see why this would be a big problem, because if you haven't really accounted for the fun you want to have in retirement, you might engage in some emotional spending and then figure out, I probably shouldn't have done that.
That's right. Yeah, we see that often, whether it's taking trips or I know a guy that when he retired, he couldn't sit still, and he went on like 6 or 7 cruises in the first year that he was retired.
Bon voyage. Wow. Yeah. So he sailed around the world there. And but did he have the money for that? Did he bracket that into his retirement plan?
No.
Oh, God.
So that's why, in years 2 and 3, he was having conversations about, hey man, let's talk about this. What does my budget look like? So we walked him through his budget, and I've mentioned before on the show that we've got a tool that we use called the Asset Map. So
the Asset Map.
The Asset Map. So what that does is you can run that at any time, but we like to run it right before you get into retirement. But it outlines everything that you have, because over time people accumulate 401ks, IRAs, insurance policies, all sorts of things. And it's out there somewhere. But if we can get them into a sit down meeting with us and we can, collect that information and we can actually put it on one page, and then we could start running scenarios. It says, okay, just dream big. Tell me what you want to do, and your assets and that will tell us if we can do that or not. And so for this particular guy, once he got into years 2 or 3, we had to do everything all over again, just to kind of recalibrate him and get him back into retirement mode. Yeah. So,
get him back on a more sustainable course.
Sustainable course. Yes. Yeah. You can take some cruises, but maybe not 7 a year.
To tell you, that's a lot of travel right there. And I bet he enjoyed it, but boy, I can't imagine how he felt on the back end, realizing, oh my God, I'm going to run out of money. Cause isn't that what we're trying to avoid here? The horror of realizing, oh my God, I'm retired, but I'm going to run out of cash and I got to go back to work.
Yeah. Nobody wants to do that for sure.
No.
So that's why you have to have these conversations. And, not only do you have a budget while you're working, you're going to have a budget when you get into retirement, and we need to calculate, hey, how much money were you making and how much money are you going to be making in retirement? What's your social looking like? How much do we have a personal pension? Do we have dividends? What do we have flowing in that can sustain you? Because if we can create investments inside of the portfolio that you don't have to sell off to raise the money that you need to spend, if we like a dividend kind of thing, if that's the ideal situation. So you're probably going to do some kind of a spend down anyway. But if you can get a combination of the spend down and the dividend, that's really going to sustain you.
I like that. But Terry, let me ask you, what about the flip side of this? Going back to the song "Money" from Pink Floyd and stuff, that song it celebrates the accumulation of wealth and just getting as much as you can and hoarding it. What about the people out there who are obsessed with seeing the numbers go up? Because I know there are some out there, they just want to keep hoarding and amassing that. What are some strategies that people can use to avoid falling into that greed trap?
That's a great question, Bruce. In our entire lives, that's what we're conditioned to do, is just more accumulate. Well, at some point you gotta realize that you're not taking it with you,
That's key. Yes.
Yeah. And we have to start having those conversations about how we're going to spend. We're, like I said, we're so accustomed to accumulation. We need to talk about spending, and we need to talk about legacy and beneficiaries. Yeah. So there's things that people don't like to talk about. So when we sit down at our conversation, our consultations, we kind of walk through those hard conversations and make people start thinking about different things like that.
In our previous show, we talked about how around 7 out of 10 people are making a serious mistake when it comes to their IRAs. How many people do you think are really not thinking about their legacy when it comes to retirement planning? They're just thinking they're taking it day by day.
It's a big number. It's a big number. Yeah. And because I just don't think people are conditioned to think about that. That's not
right. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive to what we do. We work, we save, we just build this big nest egg and we got a big number. And there's so many other things to consider, long-term care events, legacies. There's so much to think about that goes into the planning aspect.
That's right. It's more than just that cash register ringing. The sound of that on the track, on the money track, it is all pervasive. Yes. And it also makes me think about inflation. I mean, getting back to something that people think about a lot, it's inflation. So I'm really curious, how is inflation impacting retirees' purchasing power? And then what can they do to prevent that?
So inflation's always going to be with us, right? Prices are always going to escalate, and things, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things are going to be more expensive. I mean, look at the price of an automobile these days. You go to buy a new car. It's crazy, right? So you're still going to need a growth aspect in your portfolio to keep up with that inflation. So that's why it's important to, at least annually sit down with your advisor, take a look at that nest egg. Where are you right now? We set up a plan. How are we doing on the plan? Are we accounting for inflation? Are we accounting for taxes? Because those are things that are going to continue to put a drag on that portfolio, no matter how big it is. So if we can minimize taxes, outpace inflation, that's going to give you that longevity that you need to really have that retirement that you've dreamed of and that you really want.
It's critical right there. And I've heard some stuff about Treasury inflation protected securities. Is there any value in these things?
There can be. The concept is you've got something that increases with inflation. So
okay.
Yeah. So when we're putting portfolios together, not everything is going to be in the stock market. Some things are going to be in the bond market. And if you can get a treasury product that's going to index for inflation, that's going to be an element in the portfolio that's going to help with that as well.
Okay. And then for our people out there who just don't know anything about this product, could you flesh it out a bit more for them?
The tips? The
Treasury inflation protected securities.
Yeah, so those are bonds basically issued by the government that are supposed to be indexing for inflation, because a lot of people are living on Social Security, and that's a big element of their retirement. So if inflation is going up, that's hurting their purchasing power over time. So if they can invest in something that's going to index with inflation, they can at least keep up, if not outpace.
It's like that gentleman that you mentioned on the last show who had all those bonds and then he cashed them in. But because he cashed them in, it put him in a different tax bracket. So that's something you got to worry about too, right?
Yes, for sure. Because when you start talking about bonds, like stocks, not all bonds are created equal.
Right.
So those are conversations that you have to have. Because number one, we need to see if they're right for you, if they're right for your portfolio. And if so, what percentage of your portfolio are we going to put into those?
Gotcha. Okay. So with that in mind, then, what really is the long and the short of the withdrawal strategy here for retirees? What is optimal for the money you're pulling out?
So again, that's going to come back to your situation. Early on, if we went back 20 years, when I first got into this business, a rule of thumb was a 4% withdrawal. So the examples we used to use were $100,000. So if you have $100,000 and you're pulling 4%, that's $4,000. How many $4,000 checks do you need every year? If you need 20 grand, we're going to need 500,000. If you're going to need, more than that, you just add 100,000 to the pile to get you to the number that you're looking for.
So then it's the short answer is that it varies from person to person.
Yeah, because everybody has different wants, different needs. Some people like to live very modest. Some people like to live very extravagant. So it just all depends. And that's why it's so important to sit down with an advisor and talk about your situation in particular, because what you want could be completely different than what I want, and vice versa. So
that's absolutely right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's why we build everything that comes out of our office is custom built for that specific client and their specific needs.
And I know people out there, they might need some help with budgeting strategies, and they might want to get it straight from somebody who knows about this stuff. They can get in touch with you very easily, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the number there on the screen, I believe, that they can get a hold of us. They can visit our website, tdc.financial. They can give us a call. Every week, we set aside some appointments for our listeners that want to come in and have these conversations, and because we want to make sure that everybody enjoys the retirement that they want to enjoy.
Sid, absolutely. I like the sound of that. No cost, no obligation financial review. That's right. That sounds good. That sounds good to me. Anything else you want to tell the people out there before we wrap up for today?
You know what? We talk about all these products, and sometimes people think that it's not for them. But you know what? It's worth a visit. Come in and sit down, spend 20 minutes, a half an hour. Let's talk about your situation and see which one of these products we can get you into to make sure that you enjoy the retirement that you're dreaming of.
Ooh, the retirement that you're dreaming of.
Yeah.
I think Terry's going to help us get close to what we're dreaming of right here. I like the sound of that. Contact info on the screen. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to Wealth Defenders shows every other week.
Yes.
That's all the time we got for today. Terry, great to see you again. Looking forward to the next one. We will see everybody else on the next one. Take care.
There you go. See you, Bruce. Thanks.
Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as complete analysis of subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management is registered as an investment advisor with the SEC and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration with the SEC does not imply a certain level of skill or training.